So today is Evans and the causal theory of reference. I'm told that today the audio is working just great, so naturally there's a problem with the video, but there you go. I'm sorry, I've tried, but I can't see how to get this any better. Okay, the causal theory of names. So we looked at Putnam and Kripke giving the basic statements of causal theories, but in a way, neither Putnam nor Kripke is giving a fully uncompromising causal theory. Kripke says, for a name to refer to an object, there must be a causal chain of communication going back to an initial baptism of the object. But then how the initial baptism works is not so clear. He says that that can be by description or maybe ostension, whatever that is. And then in Putnam, again, it looks like Putnam's giving a causal theory. But as we saw last time, he also talks about natural kind words as being governed by these systematic rules for fixing their references. Evans does give a full-fledged causal theory of reference. He means it to incorporate what's right about the description theory, but at bottom, his positive account is a theory of reference, how our signs get hooked up to the world that's causal all the way down. So he has criticisms of description theories, he has criticisms of Kripke's theory, and he has criticisms of Kripke's criticisms of the description theory. But if you follow me, but today I'm not going to do any of that negative stuff. I just want to sketch out what Evans's positive picture of reference is, how he thinks language gets hooked up to the world. So in the first section, I want to talk about his notion of a dominant source of information. He introduces this notion of a dominant source of information that plays a big part in the theory. Then he's got this example of Napoleon, the name Napoleon, that really illustrates how the whole positive theory is meant to work. And then finally, I'm going to go a bit beyond what he says in the text and look at how his theory could apply to perception and to memory. Okay, that's the plan. Sorry, someone's standing at the door, so looking in the window at the door, and I'm just trying to look encouragingly at them. But that so often happens when I look encouragingly at people who went away. Okay. Anyway, dominant source of information. This is really a way of giving a richer gloss on what Kripke means by cause. If you think about it, just to say that a sign refers to what caused the use of that sign, that can hardly be enough, because there are all kinds of causation, right? I mean, suppose I've never heard of Aristotle, I've never used the name Aristotle, but you have got this trick, you can do, you just give me a sharp blow to the head, and just by accident, that does something to my brain. So I now start using the word Aristotle. I say, Aristotle, Aristotle, Aristotle. Now you caused me to use that name, but I might not even have seen you, right? I just got this blow to the head. This came from behind, took me by surprise. If I'm now using that name, Aristotle, as a result of that, that does not mean that my use of the name is referring to you. You certainly caused my use of the name, but I'm not referring to you. And any causal theory of reference has to say, not just any kind of causation will do, it's got to be the right kind of causation. So this talking about the dominant source of information is a way of trying to explain what we mean by the right kind of causal connection. You have to say it's got to be the right kind of causal connection between an object and the sign for the sign to refer to the object. So the way Evans does it is he gives this as a definition of intends to refer. A speaker intends to refer to the item that is the dominant source of his associated body of information. So when you're using a name, when you're using a sign to refer, there will always be some information or other that you associate with the sign, some body of information. And then we've got the notion of what's the dominant cause? Source in the sense of a journalist's source. Source as the one who gives you the information. So it says usually our knowledge or belief about particular items is derived from, caused via information gathering transactions involving causal interaction with some item or other conducted ourselves. That is, you get to know Bill, you interact with Bill, you are engaged in an information gathering transaction with Bill where you find out lots about him. Or maybe it's derived through a long chain from the transactions of others. So other people find out about Bill and tell you about him. They interacted with him, and then they gave the information to you. Right? So if Bill is a celebrity, then it will come from a chain through the transactions of others. So when you're doing that, when you're conducting your investigations on Bill, you're generating a dossier of information on Bill. Whether you find out about this person by seeing them, by talking to them, whether it's by finding out about them through a photograph, rifling through their suitcase, or what other people say, one way or another, you are generating a cluster or a dossier of information on that person. And Evans says, what does it mean, the dominant source of your dossier of information? I mean, the sense in which the police can have a dossier of information on someone. A cluster or a dossier of information can be dominantly of an item, though it contains elements whose source is different. And that kind of seems common sense enough, that if you have a police file on one person, then information that's actually data about other people, derived from other people, might have got into the file by accident. Some stray bits of paper relating to other people might have got into the file. But still, the file is basically about one specific person, is dominantly of one specific person. I was trying to find a photograph to illustrate my point, and actually the blurring here probably helps. This is from a game of rugby, and this is a kind of tangle of limbs, as happens in a game of rugby. So here, you've got a dossier of information, right? You can see what this is. No, right. This is a head. This is an arm going up. This is a pair of knees. And over here is, some will just call the victim. Okay, so you've got a tangle of limbs there. You've got a dossier of information that mostly relates to this guy, but there are bits of information coming from someone else. It's mainly a photo of this guy. Now, what does it mean is dominantly of this guy? Well, Evans makes some somewhat cryptic remarks about this. It's not simply the amount of information, whatever that means. You have to take my word for this with the photos a little bit, but if you just count the pixels, it might be there are just as many pixels relating to this guy as there are to this guy. However you exactly, it's not obvious how you'd count bits of information anyhow, but if you just count it in terms of volumes of pixels, being dominantly of this guy would not be a matter of just contributing the most pixels. In the case of persons, for example, each man's life presents a skeleton, and the dominant source of the information may be the man who contributed to covering most of the skeleton, rather than the man who contributed most of the covering. You really have to say that fast for it to sound good. I'm not really sure it makes sense, but what he's saying is whoever covered most of the skeleton, rather than whoever contributed most of the covering. So here, if you get a whole bunch of information about this guy's knee, right? Suppose that there's just a ton of information about the knee of one player, and kind of minimal information about the whole of this player, then this player's knee may be contributing most of the covering, if you see what I mean. All the knee bit, all that volume of information about the knee is coming from this guy, but this guy is the one you're getting information about the whole skeleton. So in that sense, the dominant source is the one who's contributed to covering most of the skeleton, rather than the one who contributed most of the covering. Most of it, I'm not explaining that very well, am I? Well, most of the covering is just a matter of sheer volume, right? If the amount of data that you're getting is a ton of it about some tiny bit of this guy, as it might be the knee, that's most of the covering. But covering most of it is getting the flesh on over all the skeleton. Detail in a particular area, that's what I was saying. Detail in a particular area can be outweighed by spread. So if you have a lot of detail in the knee, that doesn't count because this other guy's contributing the spread. You see what I mean? So if you're looking at the police dossier, and there's a ton of information about what happened on one not particularly important night in 1969, but that's in the context of the whole story of someone else's life, even if it's quite a schematic story, then the dossier is a dossier about the person whose whole life is being covered there. That's what he's saying. That's the dominant source. And anyway, your reasons for being interested in the item at all will weigh. So the dominant source, it depends why you care. So in this case, if what you really care about is rugby, then you'll care more about this guy because you're getting more detail on what he's doing in the play of the game, and the knee is neither here nor there. On the other hand, if what you're really interested in is knees, then you may say really the guy who's the dominant source here is the guy whose knee it is. Or in the case of the police dossier, if what you're interested in is this whole criminal life, and you've just wedged in a lot of detail about some unimportant event by mistake, then the unimportant event won't matter for who's the dominant source. On the other hand, if what you're really interested in is that event in 1969, then you'll say, that's the dominant source of this information. So if you think about the case of Shakespeare, and the reason we're interested in Shakespeare is the plays. So the dominant source of our information about Shakespeare is going to be through the plays, being the author of these plays, and details about his domestic life just don't matter. We might have got someone else's file in with what little is known about Shakespeare's domestic life, and still the dominant source is the person who wrote, is the person from whom we derive the information via the plays, because really we don't care a bit about who Shakespeare was married to, or where he lived, or his second best bed, or all that kind of thing. On the other hand, if what we were really interested in was his home life, the plays wouldn't matter at all for who was the dominant source of the information. So this is just trying to explain this intuitive notion of dominant source. It's not sharply defined. Exactly what you're after will depend on the context and why you're interested in the thing, but that's all you get from Evans. So is that plain enough about dominant source? I'm not sure that makes it much more comprehensible than it was to begin with, but yeah. That's a very good question. Right. This is all by way of Evans' definition of what a speaker intends to refer to, right? So if I suppose I've literally got a dossier of information, I have a police file, yeah, then and I just say, okay, let's call this person X, then who I intend to refer to when I use the name X is the dominant source of the information in the file. Right? That's the first connect with reference. This is just really a definition. It's not important as far as I can see that the notion of intention is even being used here. We're just talking about the item that's a dominant source. Plain as day? Plain enough? Okay. As plain as it's going to get. Okay. Okay, so let's look at in more detail at Evans' full theory of how this connects to reference. So he considers two scenarios. Remember Napoleon's career. The first Napoleonic Wars, the disastrous campaigns in Germany and Russia of 1812 and 1813. Well, I actually spent 10 minutes on Wikipedia before coming here, so I'm ahead of most of you. A little bit. But anyway, Napoleon disastrously failed to negotiate with France and with Germany and Russia and Britain in 1813 and 1814. They would have let him keep vast trunks of land, but he refused to cooperate. Instead, tried to take Germany and Russia and was roundly defeated and imprisoned on Elba. Suppose that, and then he escaped and famously tried to do it all again until being defeated at Waterloo. Remember all that? The old Napoleon. Right. Anyway, as Russell said, making people think about him. Okay, now suppose that what happened was that in Elba, one person who'd been imprisoned with Napoleon killed him and impersonated him. So an impersonator took over Napoleon's life, what we think of as Napoleon's life, after Elba, and it was this impersonator who fought at Waterloo. Now consider the file of information that an actual typical historian nowadays has on Napoleon. Is that cluster of information dominantly of Napoleon or dominantly of the impersonator? So there's all this information about Napoleon up to the disastrous campaigns of 1812 and 1813 and his imprisonment in Elba. And then there's just a little bit left when he escapes from Elba and fights at Waterloo, and then it's all over. Right? So there's a long bit about his early life, his early exploits, conquering Europe and so on, and then there's a little bit after he escapes from Elba, and the impersonator just takes over after Elba. Let me put it to you again. Consider the dossier of information that the historian has on this guy that they associate with the name Napoleon. Is that dossier of information dominantly about, has its dominant source, the early guy or the late guy?
Early guy.
Very good. That is the right answer. So the cluster of the, in fact, it's written up there, so actually it's not that good that you got it. Okay. The cluster of the typical historian is still dominantly of the man responsible for the earlier exploits. Okay? That's okay. And in that case, if that was what was going on, then when people say Napoleon fought at Waterloo, then that's going to express a false belief. Because it wasn't Napoleon who fought at Waterloo. It was this impersonator. And the moral here is that the name Napoleon is referring to the dominant source of that cluster of beliefs. That's the tight connection between reference and dominant source. The person you're talking about is the dominant source of the beliefs you associate with the name. Plain as day? Okay. Suppose, and follow me very closely here, suppose on the other hand that back in 1793, when Napoleon was just a promising youth, just beginning his early steps in the ladder, suppose that what happened was that someone killed the person named Napoleon and took over, impersonated him, took over his life, impersonating this unknown army officer. And then this impersonator goes on to fight the great battles of the First Napoleonic Wars, has the unsuccessful campaigns of 1812 and 1813, and is imprisoned in Elba. In that case, who is the dominant source of the historian's dossier? The impersonator. Very good. Right. Okay. I'm not trying to make a secret of it. Okay. So then the cluster of the typical historian would be dominantly of the impersonator. And in that case, when you use the name Napoleon, who would you be referring to? If you say Napoleon fought at Waterloo, in that case it will express a true belief. Because it will be the unknown the impersonator of that unknown army officer that is the dominant source of the cluster of beliefs. So again, the model is that the name is referring to whoever is the dominant source of the cluster of beliefs. Actually, you have to be really careful about this. I'm saying refers to, but that is a simple version of the theory. Because remember, what he actually said was the speaker intends to refer to. Right? So the point here is this expresses a true belief because when you use this name, you're intending to refer to the dominant source of the cluster of your beliefs. Right? So you've got a cluster of beliefs, all using the same name. The intended reference is the dominant, whoever that is actually the dominant source. So here's the situation. Here's the first situation where here's I can't remember which way around this is. Here's the successful army officer conducting the First Napoleonic Wars and being sent to Elba. Here is the guy who takes over and impersonates him from Elba on. Then we've got the cluster of beliefs here. Napoleon is F1, F2, F3, and so on. And here, this guy is the dominant source. In this situation, the impersonator takes over much earlier, and here, beta is the dominant source. Yep. So in this case, the intended referent is alpha. In this case, the intended referent is beta. Plain as day? Yep.
I think I bring up the question about the dominance again.
Mm-hmm.
Because say in the first scenario where he took over in 1814.
Yep.
Suppose prior to 1814, Napoleon was doing things that we weren't interested in. And
Yes.
the impersonator comes along.
Right.
We're all of a sudden interested, so we have all this detailed information on this all important, so it doesn't have spread.
Yes.
So it seems like when we speak of Napoleon, in that case, we would be referring to the second one.
That's very good. Yes, right. If all Napoleon had ever done of any interest was after 1814, then in this case, we still want to say the dominant source is this guy, because this guy did all the stuff that we were interested in, because all the stuff we were interested in came here. Is that right? That's your point?
Well, I was kind of confused if that's like a shorter period of time.
Right.
It's a bit more detail, like a detailed game.
Exactly. Very good. Yes, right, right.
The spread was-
The critical thing. Well, let's see. Your point is, in this case, detail in the particular area is outweighing spread, right? And that's right. But I think the right way to put that is to say your reasons for being interested in the item at all are weighing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's exactly on point. Okay. So the intended reference of Napoleon is the dominant source of the information associated with the name. So you see there's something in this that's a bit like Searle. Because he is talking about a cluster of information, the cluster of descriptions associated with the name, the way Searle does. But where Searle says it's whoever matches the cluster of information, Evans is not saying that's not right. It's whoever is the dominant source of the cluster of information, not who best matches it. And so Evans is replacing Searle's notion of match with this notion of dominant source. But actually, this is really just intended reference of a single individual. The full theory is a little bit more complex than that. The full theory gets a little bit complicated. So here we go. Napoleon is a name of X if there is a community C in which it is common knowledge that members of C have in their repertoire the procedure of using Napoleon to refer to X, or equivalently with the intention of referring to X. So common knowledge just means everyone knows that this is going on, everyone knows that everyone knows that this is going on, everyone knows that everyone knows that this is going on, everyone knows that everyone knows that everyone knows that this is going on, right? It's kind of out in the open that we're all doing this. And what is it that we're all doing?